All right, second half of the second day. Had some lunch, had some coffee, how we're feeling. This is a great topic. One announcement. We, in the guidebook app, the Klaviyo app, we have a end of conference survey that's now live. So as you kind of filter in, would love to get your feedback on that stuff. So click on that. There's 2 questions. We're keeping it super simple. So next conversation is a great one, using email and Facebook together. Corey is from Metric Digital. I was just talking about his title, which is Head of Email, which is a pretty awesome title. Corey, a fun fact he shared with me is that he studied philosophy in college.
Yep.
And wrote a paper, your thesis on censorship.
I did, yeah.
So this is going to be a completely unfiltered, uncensored presentation, correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, I graduated from college 12 years ago, and it's a whole new world out there on the internet, so yeah, things are different. It's good.
You drop some F-bombs? Facebook.
Facebook. That's what's going to happen.
All right.
Yeah.
Give it up for Corey.
All right, cool. Thanks. All right. Cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about integrating your Klaviyo audiences with Facebook. So I come from Metric Digital. Metric Digital is a performance marketing agency. We didn't do email until about a year ago. I think the founders of the company were on a search for how can we get into a new channel and grow our business and really do something great for our clients. And they said, well, email is a really good thing for us to get into. So they searched and searched and searched until they found me, which is awesome. And they decided, this is the time for us to really get into this. So we work with a lot of disruptive brands, Bonobos, NatureBox, Hired, Mack Weldon, Armorvere, a whole bunch of other kinds of companies. And we really help them grow to scale. So if they say, we really want to be selling $20 million worth of stuff next year, we really want to have, 1 million customers, we're going to do everything we can to try to help them do that. We also work with enterprise companies who are trying to stop disruptors. So if there's a company, say like Citizen Watches, who says, hey, there are all these new brands in the market, how are we going to reach that kind of customer? And we can help those established brands kind of protect against that disruption. So that's a little bit about what we do. Before I came, this is kind of what our business looked like. So we were kind of focused on like Google and Bing and paid social. And then when I came, we added this pillar of email. So we really kind of focus on, the whole shebang. So we really want to make sure that people are sending great automated emails. We want to make sure that they're building out a good calendar, that they're testing, that they're really working their audience to the full potential. And as an agency, we're really trying to integrate all these 3 channels together. So, and a lot of times, I've been on the client side of the business, and sometimes you get into a place where you say, okay, these channels are kind of competing against each other, for sales and for customers and attribution and all those kinds of things. Well, what we really want to do is what's best for the business, and we find that integrating these channels is always best. So if you take a look at this funnel, so really we want to optimize to the bottom of the funnel. So kind of we start with this prospecting at the top and kind of move down to email and loyalty. And we're really focusing on customer retention and activation and ultimately customer lifetime value. So those are things that we're really paying attention to as time goes on. We really care about making sure that the customers that you have are going to come back and really be advocates for your brand, really do the thing that's going to make you happy, which is buy more and more often. Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about why we're integrating Facebook and Klaviyo together. So the first thing I just want to kind of mention are goals. So there are a number of goals that you want to kind of tackle when you do something like this. So I think the first thing to focus on is the audience. So you really want to grow and increase the reach for your brand on Facebook. So you've got prospecting, which is acquiring new users for the brand. Retention, that's going to be bringing people who have purchased back to purchase again. Planning. So throughout the year, I'm sure you have critical moments. So For instance, I have a company who really focuses on gifting, so Q4 is really big for them because a huge amount of what they sell are gifts to other people. So it's really important for them to say, okay, how can we increase our reach throughout the year so that by when we get to Q4, we're reaching as many people as possible. And then lookalikes. So really we want to leverage audiences to make lookalike audiences. And those audiences are going to increase the likelihood that you'll acquire qualified users. So instead of kind of guessing and saying like, well, we really think that we'll appeal to people who live close to golf courses, we can say, you already have this audience of people who are purchasers and are qualified. Let's go ahead and leverage that to, take people to the next level, find new customers, really grow your program. So the next part of the goals, is experience. So you really want to speak with different users in different ways. Not all of your customers are the same. So you have like an email experience that you put people through, and people are obviously engaging with those campaigns in different ways. So sometimes they're going to open one email and not another. Sometimes they're going to be interested in some products and not others. So what you can do is take those signals and create segments, and you can showcase more relevant content in email. But why not take that content and also showcase that relevant content on Facebook? You can push that audience right over to Facebook and serve similar content at similar times to those people. That way you're kind of on those two channels at the same time. Also, if you acquire a user at Facebook, you can continue to engage them there. So, a user who comes in via Facebook is probably going to stick with Facebook. So it's good to kind of stick with that channel and just make sure that you're engaging people on that channel as time goes on. Cool. And then I think a big part of the goal is going to be life cycle. So promoting a more robust customer life cycle really is going to do big things for your business. It's going to decrease the amount of time between purchases. This is like a really tough nut to crack, but say, you look at your customer base and you say, okay, every 90 days, we're going to make a purchase. If you can push that down to every 60 days, then everybody makes one more purchase throughout the year. So if we can use these audiences to engage on an alternate channel and decrease the amount of time that it takes somebody to purchase again, that's going to mean big things for your business. If you can get somebody to buy 4 times a year instead of 3, obviously that's going to give you a great amount of revenue. And then I think one thing I talk about with our clients often is if this, then that. So if a customer completes one action, making sure that you're using that action to determine the next thing that you're going to do. So one thing we might do is categorize all the emails that we send and say, okay, we've got these 4 different categories. Let's track everybody who opens in one of these categories, and let's serve them a specific kind of content. So if I sell shirts, pants, and shoes, and someone consistently opens the shirts emails but never opens the shoes email, well, why don't we decide not to show them the shoes email? Why don't we just show them the shirts? And then again, you can use that audience, kind of push it to Facebook, show a really nice targeted ad to those people that features that product. Cool. So probably the most important part of all of this is just identifying the right audience to show people. So everyone here, I assume, has built a segment in Klaviyo. This is kind of where you're going to say, okay, what's going to work for us when we get to Facebook? So I'm typically going to focus really heavily on users who represent like a really good potential for us. So like in this case, we're going to take people with high revenue who are engaged with email, and we're going to push those people to Facebook. Now, what we do with those people once they get there is going to vary. So we may say, okay, these people are engaged in email. Let's actually exclude them from all of our ads. Let's make sure that they continue to stay engaged with email, and let's not show them any ads. We might say, okay, let's show these people a new product. Let's see if we can kind of focus group these people and make sure that they're kind of at the front of our product cycle. Just a few logistics. So once you've created a segment, you can go into the settings of the segment and sync the segment with Facebook. So I think there have been a couple other sessions here this week about just exactly this. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. But once you've kind of chosen that audience, what you can do is actually create an audience for Facebook right in Klaviyo. So this is a really great feature. It removes an element of guessing from the process. So you don't have to make the audience on Facebook, kind of wait for it to come back to Klaviyo, and then like pick the right audience. You can actually just create the audience right here in Klaviyo. I think it's a great feature, and I really love it. I think it's just really slick. Cool. So what's worked for our clients? There's a number of things you can do to engage users in email, and a lot of those things are going to work in Facebook. And I kind of alluded earlier to sometimes it's about inclusion, sometimes it's about exclusion. So for instance, people who have recently joined your email list, you might want to say like, okay, let's not show them an ad for a little bit because they just joined. At the same time, if they just joined your list and they're not opening your emails, you might say, okay, let's create a sequence set of ads that are going to showcase that content that's in our welcome series and really kind of push people to come back to the site and kind of activate. Whenever I work with a client, we always talk about, what are the 4 or 5 things that people really need to know in order to purchase your product? And we make emails about those things. So why not make ads about those things too? We've also found a lot of success focusing on customers who have purchased a specific product. If your audience is big enough, I would say you can say, okay, we have 2,000 people who have purchased this very specific product. Why don't we build a lookalike from it? We can say, okay, these people are going to be qualified because they're adventurers and they're purchasing a really amazing backpack or something like that. And that specific product is really going to push people towards finding like other people who are going to also be interested in it. At the same time, VIP customers has been really successful for us. Finding those people who are spending a lot of money and are purchasing very often and kind of pushing those people over to ads has been hugely important. So we always want to do that. Return an order. So this was an interesting story. I had a client who they were having an issue with one of their products and they were getting a lot of returns on it. And they said, well, how are we gonna, all these people are really ticked off at us. we have they've got this product, it didn't work out. They're calling our customer service team. They're still getting retargeted on Facebook. It's a disaster. So what we did was we said, let's just take everyone who's returned an order and let's exclude them from all your advertising. It worked out really well. I think the customer service team breathed a huge sigh of relief knowing that we were just able to say, here's this thing that happened in Shopify, let's use that signal and let's decide not to show ads to people, the same way you might not show email to people. So again, it's really about synergizing between these two channels and making sure that people kind of know that you're paying attention. Active on the site. So this is kind of bread and butter, retargeting, remarketing. If people are active on the site, kind of making sure that you're hitting them at that critical moment, making sure that hey, we're paying attention, we know that you've been here. Let's use that critical moment to get you to really execute on that purchase. At the same time, having been inactive in email in the last 90 days, you could really run a whole reactivation campaign right in Facebook if you wanted to. So I think reactivation has been really powerful in email for a number of years. Using Facebook to reactivate people is, I think, kind of a new thing. And leveraging your audience in Klaviyo to kind of build those reactivation audiences is really just going to streamline your whole process. So I think the last thing we'll talk about here are unsubscribes. We've had kind of an interesting debate internally and with clients about what to do with people who unsubscribe from email. On one token, they have told you please don't contact me again. So obviously we're not going to send email to those people. But maybe you're just engaging them on the wrong channel. So it could be a big opportunity to take those people who've unsubscribed, kind of create a custom audience, and then kind of push those people over, serve them maybe a light serving of ads in Facebook, and kind of see what happens. It's something you should test, I think, but we've really seen some success by by switching people over to an alternate channel from email. Cool. So this is kind of what our funnel looks like when we're determining our audiences here. So we really want to use segments to pull these different groups of people. So again, I mean, everyone here has used a funnel before. Getting from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel is obviously the goal. So what we're really trying to do is get people down through the funnel. So what we would do is we would build an audience for each one of these groups. So people who have engaged with the content but haven't been on site, all the way down to people who have purchased but not visited the site recently. And we think these people have sort of descending levels or ascending levels of intent. So that's kind of why we focus on it this way. At the same time, frequency is going to be really important. So on Facebook, you don't want to serve too many ads to people because that's not a great way to spend your money. So you want to pick the highest priority audience and kind of stack those on top of each other and make exclusions. So there may be some overlap on some of these because each one of these groups isn't independent of one another. So making sure that you're excluding audiences and ensuring that that you're kind of capping your frequency on your own is also going to be really important. We've all kind of been in a place where we've seen the same ad or same product over and over and over again in our Facebook feed. You probably wouldn't send the exact same email to your customers over and over and over again. And I think it's kind of the same concept. Cool. Facebook. So this is what the logistics of it look like. Once you've kind of made the segment in Klaviyo, and assigned it to an audience in Facebook, what you're going to do is take this and you're going to push these people over to Facebook actually. So what this is going to do is just let you pick out your targeting, pick out your exclusions, kind of make sure that you're showing kind of what you want to show these people and when you want to show it to them. Yeah, so that's what that looks like. Cool, and then some conclusions. So we integrated this with one of our clothing retailers, and they saw a really great increase in reach. So reach is something we talk about often, just like making sure that you're getting to a really great number of people and really kind of pushing towards that. So we really saw a good increase in reach, and then obviously in revenue. So among the people we're pushing over to Facebook, we'll hold a control and say, like, let's not show some of these people an ad. Among the people who we did show the ads, there was a 40% rise in revenue. So it's definitely meaningful. I think I was surprised that it was that high. And I think given the increase in reach and the increase in revenue, this is really a no-brainer. If you're building all these segments anyway and you're spending money on Facebook, this is just a way to kind of push people to say, like, hey, let's really use these audiences we have to the best of our abilities. Spending money is tough. So if we can push down things like cost per click and cost per acquisition, which we did with this client, I think that's also going to be a huge benefit for you. So making sure that we're saying, like, hey, let's really try to control costs and really push people over to so that you can spend your money on other things, right? You want to spend your money on testing. You want to spend your money on acquiring new customers and things like that. You don't want to show people too many ads, and so if you can push down the CPC and CPA and increase your ROAS, return on ad spend, that's obviously going to also be really important for you. So that's kind of what we're seeing with our clients who have done this so far. And like I say, we've seen like a really significant improvement for them from that. Cool. So on this last slide, I think these are some of my takeaways just from having done this quite a bit for the last year. Oh, pardon me. Educating your team and partners. So I alluded earlier, sometimes there's a little bit of competition between teams, right? So you've got like an email team, you've got like a paid acquisition team, you've got a branding team. Everybody's kind of competing for customers and attribution and all that kind of stuff. So kind of establishing with your team and, if you use an agency, kind of establishing with that agency, like, hey, we really want to do this. We have all this data available. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's really going to succeed for us and really going to push people to to purchase more often. Let's figure it out. So making sure that you're very transparent with your team about what data you have available, and really just saying like, hey, how can I pull a segment of 1,000 people and make a lookalike from it? That's going to be really important. I also think like, as an agency partner, I think communication is really key. We work with a lot of companies where the right hand isn't really talking to the left. So if we're managing like paid and email for a company, it's easy because I can just like tap the person on the shoulder and say, hey, I just heard that we're going to run this sale, like let's do it together. But even if we're not, just communicating with your different partners who are running different channels that you're doing these things is going to be important. And, a valuable partner for you is going to run with it. They're going to say, oh, I'm signed up for your emails, and I got this email, and it's really great. Like, why aren't we advertising like this on Facebook? They're going to ask that question, and I think you should also demand that of your team and the people you work with. If you see success on something with one channel, you should really try to see if you can do it in another channel. Everybody's got limited resources, and kind of by leveraging those resources across multiple channels, you're really going to have a lot of success, I think, by reaching more people with relevant content. Cool, sourcing. So this is something we found out down the line that we didn't really predict. So when you acquire a user via Facebook, they're probably going to keep engaging with you on Facebook, right? They're going to continue to look at ads. They're looking at Facebook all the time, like they're on their phone, they're staring at Facebook, they're sitting at their desk looking at Facebook. They may look at it even more than email, which is unfortunate for us, but that may be the case. So I think sourcing users is really important. And if you're going to run a big ad campaign, you might want to say, okay, I know that I acquired this huge group of people via Facebook. Why don't we take a step back and say, like, let's maybe relax them on email for a while we run this Facebook campaign. You could also just do it with a control to kind of see if that's actually true or not. It's going to differ for every client or every business. One thing that works for one of my clients oftentimes doesn't work for another one. They're selling different items to different people. So, you really need to test it, but I would say no matter what you do, kind of collecting that sourcing data when you acquire a user is going to be really important. Spend your money wisely. My dad would be really happy to see that I said that. So when you create an audience in Facebook, there's always a little bit of guesswork that goes into it. And when I kind of started at Metric Digital, I had been working in email for 10 years. Like, I had never ever made a Facebook audience before. I didn't really know anything about Facebook advertising, didn't know that much about Google. And there was always like kind of a little bit of magic that went into how do we find the right audience of people. Some people were really good at it, and other people had a little bit to learn. And rightfully so. Like, it's not something that's just like, it's not a science, reaching people is not a science. So by saying like, hey, I've got this known quantity, I have all these people, like, they opted into my emails and they like me. Let's use those people to find other people like them. So by doing that, like I say, you're spending your money wisely. You can spend those marketing dollars that you save elsewhere, and maybe look for that little bit of magic. But I think this is because it's a known quantity. It's always been really great for our clients to say like, hey, let's spend that money and do it in a way that we know is going to work. Cool. Think of the complete user experience. So oftentimes when I work with a client on email, the person I work with is just an email person, Well, nobody's just an email person, but they focus on email. So they aren't necessarily thinking of like what's happening in other channels. So they may not think about like, hey, what's happening on Facebook? What's happening at Google? Is this person visiting our blog? Like, are they coming to our website? Or do we have an app? Are we sending them push notifications? Are we doing text messages? Are we using Facebook Messenger? There's this whole kind of host of communication, and building out like a nice, flow or chart and kind of understanding like, hey, what's the complete experience is going to be really important. And then auditing that experience is going to be doubly important. We did an audit for a prospective client recently, and one of the slides I did was just showing them the 10 emails I received from them in the last month, and they were pretty upset to see the 10 emails that I received. So understanding that like just because you think something is going a certain way doesn't mean that that's actually so is going to be really important. So think about that complete user experience. Think about what might be happening to a user as you are pushing them to other places, and maybe limit or increase the amount of communication you're sending based on that. That's going to be really important. And I think the last piece here, it's just test. Just like you would test in all of your emails, make sure that you're segmenting, testing. It's going to be really important over time to understand, hey, we may not know an answer to something, and that's okay. What we really want to do is figure out the answers to those things. When I work with our clients, a lot of times we're saying, okay, when I get to that critical time of year, what are the items that I want to know? Because when I get to that critical time of year, I don't want to be guessing. I really want to know the answers to my questions at that point. So as you kind of move into whatever that critical time of year is for you, if you sell bathing suits, it's the summer. If you focus on gifting, it might be holiday. There are any number of critical moments that could be for you. But kind of planning for those critical moments and saying okay, what's my goal for when I get there? What do I want my reach to be when I get there? What are the dozen things that I really want to know when I get there? I think those are really important. So segmenting and testing and kind of understanding hey, we're going to be really systematic about the way we test this so that we can find answers to those questions is super important. So yeah, I think that's just something to keep in mind. And in my experience, that's been a really key moment. Cool. So that's what I've got. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Cool.
Right.
There you
Have
go.
you guys tried creating lookalikes off of unsubscribes and then excluding them from your regular lookalikes, or have you tried, instead of doing all purchasers and doing purchasers in the last 30 days or 60 days?
Sure.
Have you found that works better, or just want to hear your experience?
So it kind of depends on the size of your audience. To make a really effective lookalike, I find that 2,000 people is kind of a good number to shoot for. So when you're talking about purchasers, in particular purchasers from the last 30 days, if you've got the audience for it, I think that's a really good strategy. Especially since if you sell a seasonal item, there's a really good chance that you're at that critical time of year and there are going to be other people looking for that seasonal item. So I do think using people from the last 30 days or 60 days or 90 days could really work well. But we've seen the most success with, I would say, people who have purchased multiple times, right? So those are the customers who are really going to shine out for you. If somebody's only purchased once, we just don't know as much information about them, Unsubscribes. So it's a really interesting topic. I used to work with a company, and we were in this big meeting. Everybody was there. It was probably my second year on the job, and the head of marketing, she said to me, "Corey, why don't we just send one email to all the people who've unsubscribed from our list?" So I was obviously not a big fan of that idea. And I said to her, would I go to all my ex-girlfriends' houses and knock on their doors and ask them out on a date? Probably not. So not if I wanted to have a good day. So I think that's kind of a way to think about your unsubscribe audience. I do think you should test it though, because it may be the case that maybe they're just not interested in email, Maybe they're going to engage on another channel. I would say, the day that someone unsubscribes, they probably don't want to see anything from you again, right? If they're motivated enough to open your email, scroll the end, click unsubscribe, they probably aren't going to want to see an ad from you. So what I might do is say, okay, let's look back 30 days. Let's look at people who unsubscribed a month ago. Let's maybe try to reactivate those people on another channel, because we know they may be qualified. Some of them may be past purchasers. Let's try to engage them on the other channel and kind of see if it works. And building a lookalike of those people, absolutely. If you know that like there are things that if there are signals among those people they're going to kind of unify and you can make an exclusion from it, like you should try it. I have a hunch that for a mature business, that exclusion would be massive. So it may not work as well. But if you're kind of like a growing business, that could be a way to kind of optimize and again, kind of save a little bit of money.
Can you talk a little more about how we might treat these different segments differently? So for example, if we have someone who's subscribed but hasn't bought, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I'm going to show him my deals.
Right, yeah.
If he's bought just once, I want to buy twice, I'm going to show him my deals. If he's bought 3 times, I'm going to show him my deals. Like, same thing at the website activity and all that. Like, what are some different ways we can use?
Oh, what does your business sell?
We're a daily deal site. So
Daily deals? Okay.
Yeah,
So you sell a wide variety of items.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So can you like, if it were me, I would say, let's categorize all those items, right? So if you sell...
So absolutely. So we can definitely say like restaurant buyers get restaurant deals, beauty salon
Exactly.
buyers.
So that's probably the first thing I would do.
Yep.
So if you can say like, hey, I know that piece of information about you, that's definitely like the very first thing I would do. But you're right. I mean, sometimes volume just wins, like the loudest thing wins. And like, if you can say like, hey, I've got all these deals, like, let's do it. I would say probably, what we see a lot of success with is like on Facebook specifically is like a carousel. So if you can show like a variety of products, maybe from a variety of verticals even, like that would be good. So say you said like restaurant deals, say you also sell like watches and phones, right? Maybe like that first piece of the carousel is going to be the category that they purchased in before, but maybe you can convert them to another category. So I think that's probably how I would look at it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess maybe for some of the other people, I imagine other people are wondering about it, but if you have a general e-commerce store, how do maybe some of your clients, how have they treated people who are in different stages of that funnel differently?
So frequency is going to be really important, and I think the amount of money they're willing to spend on them is also going to be really important. So someone who is going to be a repeat customer is obviously like you're going to be willing to spend a little bit more money to like bring them back because their lifetime value is going to be a lot higher, and that's going to be something that they focus on. That said, I mean, someone who buys once, like. It's going to be the lookalike that you get from the people who only bought once is going to be not as good as people who bought twice. It's probably going to be a lot bigger, which is good. But again, it's just about like how am I going to spend that money? Am I going to spend it in a way that's going to do the best thing for my business? So yeah.
Hi. For stores that aren't quite as large, as we start to splice these things out, are there minimums, audiences that you like to look at? I know for lookalikes we have minimums that we can do, but for general ads, are there minimums you like to hit when we're splicing out? And how do you do that if it's too small?
So I would say, depending on the price of your product, right, and depending on the amount of effort it's going to take you to make the audience, make an ad, and then evaluate its performance. An audience of like 200 or 300 people might be totally fine. If you're going to target an ad to those people, that could work, But if you sell an item that's at a little bit lower price point, if it's going to take a lot of effort to kind of get there, like the juice might not be worth the squeeze. So that's kind of what I would focus on, I think. Like think about average order value. Think about like, if I can get 2% of these people to convert, and at X average order value, like what's that going to give me, and is that going to be worthwhile for me? Cool.
All right, we've got 3 mics out there. Jeremy, we'll start with you, and we'll work our way down.
Hey, Corey, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Sure.
Question about creating custom audiences directly from Klaviyo. And,
Yeah.
Because we have a segment. Now that the CLV is now one of our options for export and one of the metrics there,
Sure.
we can just press a button and make a custom audience, right? In using CLV as one of our metrics. But in Facebook, when we just go in and do a manual CSV import, they have the so-called LTV field, and we can then create. Have you played with that? And no, I have, and I do have really well converting lookalikes based on that.
Sure.
But if we do it from Klaviyo directly, and so we want to keep it dynamic, we lose that LTV side on Facebook. And I'm just wondering, what's the trade-off here to have the better data science from the Klaviyo side versus the fake LTV that Facebook is calculating for us.
Fake LTV, yeah.
And I'm not, because it isn't LTV, it's just a magic number.
Right, yeah.
You're telling them. So I'm trying, whether it be you or anybody in the room who's played with one versus the other, I'd sure love to get some feedback on that.
So full transparency, like I haven't done both of those things, so I probably won't speak to it. But I do think like if you can get a little bit of transparency in how that lifetime value is calculated, and then kind of determine if that's how you would calculate it, that's probably the model I would go with.
I have faith in Klaviyo data science, so.
So that's the answer to your question.
As opposed to, on the other hand, we're letting Facebook calculate based on a series of numbers, and
Sure.
whether you give them. I guess the question is, do we trust Facebook's interpretation of that number relative to one customer versus customer 2 versus customer 3?
Right.
And then Facebook then decides whether this is someone we want to target or not, as opposed to the Klaviyo side where we're just putting it up there.
Right, yeah. So the challenge with Facebook, I think anyone who's used Facebook in this room would say this, is that we don't always know like what Facebook is up to, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like they're constantly testing and trying to figure out new things, and what you see might not be the same as what I see, and it can be like a lot. So I think for the risk averse, I would say go with kind of the Klaviyo way. If you're willing to take a little bit of risk and kind of spend a little bit of money on the Facebook side, like I would probably try it. I would test the two things against each other. Like that's if you were my client and you were asking me that question, like I would test the two things against each other, and I would say, what's going to get me a better ROI?
Are you talking about lookalike 1 built off the Klaviyo segment, and then lookalike 2 built off the export of the CSV, and then let the two fight each other, and then just exclude one from the other?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
technique?
Yeah.
All right, great suggestion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to know. I know very little about it, so yeah. Cool. Good to know, though.
Hi, thank you. Gosh, I forgot my question. But actually, here it is. Is there a pattern or recipe you've seen in your experience, whether or not to serve a pure product carousel or a lifestyle carousel to particular segments?
Sure. I think so. I would say it depends on where they are on the funnel, right? I would say like higher up in the funnel, like that's probably when you're gonna try to push the lifestyle stuff. That's where the branding content is gonna be more important. Earlier I said, what are the 4 or 5 things that your customers need to know in order to make a purchase? And if they've never made a purchase before, that lifestyle imagery is probably gonna be more important than someone who has handled your product, seen it before, kind of knows what the quality of it is. That person is going to be able to look at another one of your products and say, well, I have an expectation that it's going to be of similar quality, So I would probably determine that. I would make that decision based on like where are they in the funnel rather than what have they done. Yeah. Well, I mean, what they've done kind of determines where they're on the funnel, but you get the idea. Cool.
Hi, could you elaborate a little more on your comment towards the beginning about, I think it was a gifting business you were talking about, that it's a good idea for them to start building up their audience prior to holiday.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of guessing a little bit at the intent of your comment is are there things that we should be doing now that maybe don't look great from an ROI point of view, but that will pay off down the road?
So if you want to increase your reach, like if that's the goal, is to get in front of more people, you kind of want to pick out those lookalikes that are gonna give you like a nice big audience now, right? And you want to serve ads to those people and see what your success looks like. That way, hopefully you'll convert some of those people into engaged users or customers or something like that, and then down the line, like when you get to that critical time of year, you will have more people to work with, and B, you're going to know the answers to those questions. So again, like, I don't think that, you know, at holiday, for instance, when everybody's trying to like fight for every scrap, and it's going to cost you a lot more money to advertise, I would say that that's probably not the time to be like doing like super aggressive testing and trying something for the first time. Like, you really want to try it for the first time before then. So yeah, does that answer your question? Cool, right on.
So I know you talked about engaging people on the channel you acquired them. So
Sure.
engaging them on Facebook if you acquired them through Facebook.
Yeah.
I guess like the question is like, do I have to? I mean,
You don't.
Have you had any success with like converting people over? You know, even if it's a smaller segment. Like I
Right,
know
yeah.
like the majority is probably going to be that way, but can you get people to start becoming, you know, an active in email that you acquire through Facebook?
So what I've seen success with is like an email only promotion, right? So like if you've got somebody who consistently engages on Facebook and you say, look, my Facebook people just aren't as valuable to me as my email people, and I know that if I can send this person an email, they're going to do better. So to me, like that's a case for, hey, let's like really try to convert this person to email. That said, like you don't want to force somebody, you know, if somebody just loves the Facebook app and they just spend all day in it, as many of us probably do, like, and you're able to hit them on that channel, you know, I think staying in that channel would be totally fine. So I don't think that it's necessarily the case that you have to convert people to another channel, but I think, you know, if you think it's valuable for you, like it's probably worth the effort to do it. Yeah.
Go ahead in the middle right there. Go ahead.
So earlier you mentioned you did a split test right here.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You did a split test and you seen a 40% increase in revenue.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on how you structured that split test?
Sure. So what we're going to do is, so with that particular client, like we ran the test for about 6 months. Like we said, like, okay, we're going to have a control group of people who we're not going to do anything with, and then we're also going to have this group of people who we're going to push to Facebook, and we're going to serve ads to them there. We're going to, you know, kind of replicate the email experience there, kind of see what goes on. So with those people, that's where we're seeing a 40% increase on revenue with those people who were using on both channels. So let me think back. So we did a wide variety of segments for that particular client. So I would say it was a mix, but it wasn't a random mix. So we're mixing people together who meet certain criteria. So like we're not using like non-purchasers for that group, like we're using past purchasers, but they may be from a wide variety of different categories. It may be the case they haven't purchased in a year. It may be the case that they, you know, purchased 30 days ago, and we're trying to use like a nice distributed mix of those people. Yeah.
All right, we have space for 2 more questions. One up there, one down here.
So I work with an agency, run an agency. When I bring a
there
new
you
client on board, I have basically a file set up for Shopify to calculate LTV, and you sort columns by a certain way, and it'll spit out gross profit LTV,
Yep.
net profit LTV. Do you know of anything or an easy way to basically figure out average buyer recycle?
Buyer recycle. When
Like
you
basically
say
how often a person comes back and buys?
comes back to buy again,
Yep. After they've purchased. Or an easy way to figure it out.
so off the top of my head, like the way that I would probably do that is probably with like a segment in Klaviyo. So if the user exists in Klaviyo, like I would probably cut a segment of people who kind of like fit that audience and say like how many people are moving from one to the other on the regular. But I might need to think about that a little more.
Got one more.
Klaviyo has its new predictive analytics that tells you the average time in between someone's purchases now.
Oh, cool. Apparently I'm like way behind the times, so yeah.
Yeah, last one, quick one. I know you said it's, here, sorry.
Thanks.
I know it's a tricky question because it's attribution, but for all the people that only do email or only do Facebook, and then you run an email
Yep.
with a Facebook ad, like what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, attribution is kind of $1 million question. So what do I always encourage my clients is to pick away and kind of go with it. So like if that means last click for you, like it's going to be last click. If you can do distributed attribution, like if you can say, well, we're going to devote, we know that this person has, 10 points of contact, like we're going to distribute the credit across those 10 points, maybe give 40% to the last point, 20% to the first point, and kind of split the other 40% between the other 8. That's probably what I would, personally, like that's what I would try to do, but that's outside the scope capability for some people. So I would say kind of pick something and go with it just for the sake of consistency, and that way you can kind of judge like, okay, this is what's actually happening. That said, you can also look back and say like, what percentage of my customers are receiving email, So say Facebook is getting all the attribution, that doesn't mean that you should just stop sending email, right? Because it may be the case that you can look back and say like, okay, I have these like, 1,000 people who purchased in the last month, 800 of those people are receiving email from me, 600 of those people are opening those emails. So I would say if there's engagement on the channel, that's probably like part of the story. But when it comes down to just like raw attribution, it's a super personal decision, and it really depends on what your tech stack looks like. Yeah.
Corey, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.